before we dive into it, just as a quick intro, Unearthed Arcana is a segment released by Wizards of the Coast, the developers of Dungeons & Dragons, and it contains all sorts of new content that will eventually, in some form, hopefully make its way into the game. This is a playtest release that they release for free on their website, and it's a way for them to get feedback and understand how the community that plays their game feels about these kinds of ideas, in this case, spells and magical tattoos, before they become permanent additions to the game. It's a really, really healthy, cool thing, and I'm really excited they're doing it. But Pete, take us away. What are we talking about? The spells and magical tattoos. I already said it. Tell me about these, though. Tell me.
Well, we have a bunch of spells. They are mostly spells here that we're going to be looking at that are related to summoning creatures, which is great because the summoning, as it stands, like the conjure animals and stuff, they aren't great. They're not bad. I wouldn't go so far as to say that they're unusable, but they're not really, I think, they don't really fulfill the ideal of summoning, or they can either that or they bog down play in a lot of ways. So they have some new options here, and I'm excited to talk about what we think of the execution here, because they all follow a very, even though there are like, I think 6, 7, 8 of these new summoning spells, they all follow very, very similar conventions.
Yeah, it's really just a new kind of take for how they want summoning to work in 5th edition D&D.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is great because it didn't work very well before. If you ever played a druid that maybe summoned animals or woodland creatures or something, it's always been really weird as to how it works. I can especially see like the shepherd druid, which is all about summoning, really liking this new take. But yeah, there's some other new spells in here as well that aren't just summons, and they are mostly utility spells meant to kind of fill some gaps in play styles availability to different classes. I'm very excited about these. I'm very, very excited about these.
But there's 2 that are just new spells that are nothing like that, which we'll talk about. Or are there 3 of them that are like that?
Yeah, Acid Stream. Yeah, there are a couple that are funkier.
So we'll go over those first. And that's the first level spell is the first one here. It's called Acid Stream. It is an evocation spell. It's a 30-foot line, takes 1 action, and it requires concentration for up to a minute. The material component is a bit of rotten food, which is gross. As obviously the implication here is that you're vomiting the acid stream by eating rotten food.
Yum, 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 yum.
The material components are always jokes. A stream of acid emanates from you in a line 30 foot long and 5 feet wide in a direction you choose. Each creature in the line must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or be covered in acid for the spell's duration, or until a creature uses its action to scrape or wash the acid off itself or another creature. A creature covered in the acid takes 3d4 acid damage at the start of each of its turns. So how do you actually feel about this, Jeremy?
And then the acid damage increases at higher levels.
Yes, I'm sorry. An extra d4 for every level that you upcast it, as is often the case with first level damage spells. Get an extra dice for each.
Really interesting because this is it's a dot. It's a damage over time effect. And there are so few of these in 5th edition D&D.
Yeah, and a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's very good. I mean, it is kind of... It's weird, right? Because 3d4, how much damage is 3d4? Like, actually, on average. It's going to be, what, 7.5, 8 damage? Give or take?
Yeah, about that. Sounds right.
Yeah, about 8 damage on average. And... yeah, we'll say 7 damage. Probably round down.
7.5 is the exact.
Yeah, so we'll say 7, right? At first level, 7 damage is nothing to shake a stick at, right? And they take that damage at the start of their turn, and it's a pretty big 30-foot line with a pretty big AoE. I mean, I think even if it didn't do continuous damage every turn, this would be a pretty okay spell, just in its own right.
I thought so.
Forget the fact that it does it every turn and requires an action to get rid of. There's no save at the end of the turn.
That's the big kicker, is its action economy to remove the effects of the spell, and it is concentration, so you have to maintain it. But
yeah,
this is not an insubstantial tick. Hitting with it once, which is what you get if they fail, I guess the drawback is that unlike, say, a Burning Hands, which is more damage and half on a successful save, is that if they succeed on the save, they
It's
just
nothing.
succeed. But it's a 30-foot line is a big line.
Yeah, I guess like the thought process on the spell, right? I guess the real issue, right, is if it misses, it misses. Whatever. It's not that strong. But if it hits, you're just going to hit them for 7 damage each turn until they spend their whole turn getting rid of it. So if we take like 3 creatures, right, you hit, or let's say 4 creatures, hit 4 creatures with this in a 30-foot line, and those 4 creatures, let's say half of them succeed on it, right? So half of them take nothing, and then the other half are going to take 7 damage every turn until they use their whole turn to stop it. Like Command is a first level spell, targets 1 creature, and it burns a creature's turn. This targets a couple of creatures and takes their turns. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think I'd like to see it in play a little bit before I make any final judgments on it, but it's definitely close. I think at 2d4, I wouldn't question it. At 3d4, I don't know. Also, there's some conversation in chat about catapult spell. Catapult spell, it only hits the first creature by the catapult.
Yeah, that's the difference.
So it only ever hits 1 creature. This hits a bunch.
Everyone in the line. Blood Deuce was saying doesn't like the feel of the spell because it's written in a way that could so easily. It's like intentionally forcing the "you're vomiting" joke.
Yeah.
Which it definitely is. Which is a weird.
Pushing it a little much.
I agree. Actually, I think they should tone that down a bit. But it's just a bit of rotten. It's the bit of rotten food material component that's telling it. Like if it didn't have that, I think it would be fine.
Well, and I think the mechanical implication to really discuss isn't the fact that it's a damage over time. It's the fact that it takes an action to remove it on a subsequent turn. Because if a creature ever uses this action to do this, that means it's not using that action to attack you or one of your allies. And that it's interesting to consider. I think actually people were mentioning Agonizar's Scorcher, which is a spell from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which does a similar effect to this. It does 3d8 damage once in a 30-foot line.
And it's a second level spell.
So
this does feel a little overtuned to me. And when I say that, I think it feels a little bit overtuned.
Yeah,
like it's really
I said,
close.
At 2d4, I wouldn't bat an eye. At 3d4, I don't know. And I wonder where this would even go at higher levels. Say you cast this at because I think if you could catch 3 creatures in this, why wouldn't I cast this at 5th level, right? And make that 74 acid damage. Yeah, take your 74s of acid damage or use your turn to stop it, right? And you're going to take it once guaranteed if you fail because it's at the start of the turn.
Addy was saying there are many creatures of acid resist or immunity in 5e. Yeah,
there are almost none.
There are some. I wouldn't say that there's a ton though. I mean, it's not like a fire damage or a cold damage. I think it's
acid is the least resisted, I believe, in the game.
Is it actually the number one, not force or?
No, I mean force is the least resisted. I used to have this easily available, but I don't.
Yeah, it's one of the harder ones to resist, like acid and thunder. There are creatures like oozes in particular are probably not going to be good. This isn't going to be good against them. But
yeah, even radiant I think is more resisted than acid. Very little resists acid. But anyway,
that's acid
cool
stream.
Spell. I'm glad that we're seeing some acid damage in the game because currently you had acid splash and that's it. But yeah, it's cool. I think we'll see. I'd like to see it play tested, and I think they would like to see it play tested too. Right? That's why it's here.
Do you want to take Otherworldly Form, Jeremy?
Yeah, this is a whack
really
one.
like this one.
6th level transmutation spell. In 1 action, it targets yourself. The material component, which is verbal and somatic. The verbal is, and the material is, an object engraved with the symbol of the outer planes, worth at least 500 gold pieces. And it concentrates for up to a minute. And then, uttering an incantation, you draw upon the magic of the lower planes or upper planes, your choice, to transform yourself. You gain the following benefits until the spell ends. You're immune to fire and poison damage if you pick the lower planes, or radiant and necrotic damage if you pick the upper planes. You're immune to the poison condition, lower planes, or the charmed condition, upper planes. Spectral wings appear on your back, giving you a fly speed of 40 feet. You have +2 bonus to your armor class. All of your weapon attacks are magical, and when you make a weapon attack, you can use a spellcasting ability modifier instead of strength or dexterity for the attack and damage rolls. And you can attack twice instead of once when you take the attack action on your turn. You ignore this benefit if you already have a feature like extra attack that gives you an extra attack.
I think this is a really cool
Very
spell.
interesting.
It's a spell that's designed to turn a spellcaster into a fighter for a minute, into a martial class, essentially. And there's something really cool to me about, like, I'm picturing this being used almost in more of an RP sense, where the wizard just can outduel like a low-level fighter by just using this spell on themselves to magic themselves. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that seems I can picture the wizard being like, I can beat you even on your own terms, and like then like forcing them to like battle with swords using this spell. In terms of how good it is for a 6th level spell against enemies, it actually seems a little bit weak to me. I don't know how you feel about that.
This is really funky because this is very much like a spell they released in Xanathar's Guide to Everything called Tensor's Transformation, which was intended to do something very similar. It's also 6th level. It also has a concentration for 10 minutes instead of 1. And what Tensor's Transformation does is it gives you a second attack. It gives you, it gives you an extra attack like this does. It lets you do extra force damage on hit instead of letting you use your spell modifier. And it gives you some other funky proficiencies and temporary hit points. So it does a really similar deal, which is one of the things that confuses me. The real big differences I see here are the +2 bonus to armor class, right? And the flight and the immunities. That's really where it differentiates. And I don't know about you, Pete, but I really hate to see them putting more immunities in the game. Personally, I know they already exist on spells like Investiture of Flame and
that spell though.
But the problem is, right, Investiture of Flame is a 6th level spell, and really what it does is it gives you immunity to fire. That's like the core thing it does. It does a little bit more of extra stuff here and there.
It's a 6th level spell that makes you seem really cool while you have immunity to fire.
Yeah, and it's got some other useful abilities. I don't want to say it doesn't do anything else, but for this to be like, well, you're immune to fire and poison, whoa, right? It's like, well, same level, but you're doubling it up. Yeah, and you're giving it a bunch of other good features. It kind of like feels a little power creepy to me. I'm not sure
I get you on that.
This spell in its current form, I don't know how much space there really is for it.
Yeah, but like I said, at the end of the day, I don't think it's that good. And the thing that I like about it is, I mean, again, other than if you're fighting an enemy that's doing a lot of fire and poison damage or radiant necrotic damage, sick. It's really good. But in terms of like, the goal of this, I think, is to make you a wizard into a martial character for a minute.
Yeah.
And I don't think it makes you compete in that field at all. You're better off just casting a spell that does a bunch of damage.
Yeah, well, and the thing that is even more interesting about that, right, is like this otherworldly form, it's a concentration spell. You get hit, you gotta roll a con save or fall. So unless you're playing a conjuration wizard, you're in some tough shape. The one they put in Mordenkainen's, the Tensor's Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Tensor's Transformation, it gives you proficiency in con saving throws as part of the feature while you have it. And so it's like, I'm wondering why we don't have something similar in here, right, that lets you keep this form a little easier, right? Why isn't there you have advantage on your concentration checks while you are in this form? So, I don't know, unless you have like a really sick magical weapon. Like, I could see if you had a flame tongue sword or something, maybe wanting to use this. But actually, it doesn't give you proficiency in the weapons either. So, like, you have to be proficient in the weapon to use it.
Yeah, it's just all the power in this is in the stuff that I think is unfun about it.
And maybe
the stuff that's cool, isn't strong enough.
Yeah, what classes is this on? Because I know otherworldly form.
Wizard.
It is on the wizard. That's a little funky. So for a spell. What's the Blade Song wizard? That could be nice.
Wizard,
Warlock,
sorcerer, cleric, and warlock.
Yeah, I could see the Pact of the Blade Warlocks or Hexblade Warlocks enjoying it. Sorcerer,
Yeah,
I am not sure. I don't know how you'd do that as a sorcerer.
Maybe a Hexblade getting an extra attack, but they'll get that from a invocation, don't they?
Well, yeah, but like I could see the flight and and immunities being useful for like on those two.
But that's the thing is like I feel like the flight and immunities aren't what makes this unique. That's just flight and immunities, and you can get those from other sources and like. Anyway, it's something like I like it. It's like I like the idea of it more than I like the execution.
Yeah, exactly. The execution's a little discordant, I think. Let's talk about this next one, which whoa, baby.
These are a lot more controversial than I thought they were going to be.
Oh yeah, this is a whack one here. You want to take Spirit Shroud, Pete?
Yeah, sure.
Or should I?
Spirit Shroud, bonus action, casting range of self, concentration up to a minute. You call forth spirits of the dead, which flit around you for the spell's duration. The spirits are intangible and invulnerable, and they are good or evil, your choice. Until the spell ends, any attack you make deals 1d8 extra damage when you hit a creature within 10 feet of you. Radiant if the spirits are good, necrotic if evil. Any creature that takes this damage can't regain hit points until the start of your next turn. In addition, any creature of your choice that you can see that starts its turn within 10 feet of you has its speed reduced by 10 until the start of your next turn. That sentence is a tongue twister.
And it gets more damage per higher spell slots.
And it scales with damage. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, this is a really weird spell. It's a bonus action to cast. It just gives you extra damage on hit. And the thing is, I think they're trying to make this like the Spirit Guardian spell, right? This is the melee version of Spirit Guardians, right? Because it even slows their speed like Spirit Guardians.
Yeah.
So, like, this just feels like, hey, if you want to play a melee character but want Spirit Guardians, here you go. Now that Spirit Guardians is bad on a melee character. It's good on everyone.
It's really good on a melee character, actually.
It's a Spirit Guardians melee version of Spirit Guardians. Yeah, I know what you say, Farmel.
Yeah, I get you. I didn't think of that when I read it originally, but now that you pointed out, obviously that's what they were going for. They even named it Spirit Shroud.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on this guy, Pete?
The problem for me, if it was just everything up until at higher levels, I think it was fine. But you cast this as a 5th level spell, and you put on your like fighter that's already getting 3 attacks, or your monk.
Only on self. You can only cast this on yourself.
Oh, okay, good point. Okay, I feel better about that.
Yeah, I thought about this guy a lot, and what I came down to was, man, this thing is awesome for bards. This is awesome for wizards. This is cool for clerics. Man, if you put this on a warlock, you've trashed the game. Like, be so powerful on the Eldritch Blast spam warlock.
Can paladins get this?
Paladin, it's on the paladin spell list, yeah. But keep in mind, paladins don't get it until like what, 12th level or something?
Still a good spell to cast at 12th level.
For 1d8 extra damage?
On everything?
I mean, like, they get a 1st level spell called, what is it, Divine Strike, I think, or something, that gives them an extra d4 on all their damage rolls. And there are paladins that use it, but a lot of them also don't. Yeah, I don't think this really breaks the game for paladins either. Although it is a strong option.
Yeah, I guess you're right about that. You've sold me.
Yeah, and I honestly, even the like not regaining hit points, I don't even see that as particularly powerful.
Yeah, it's extra.
Yeah, and exactly, it's just that, and the slow is just extra, and it's a lot extra.
Yeah, maybe the warlock's the only one that's bad with. I actually really like this.
Actually, wait a minute.
I thought that this was something that you could cast on other people.
Until the spell ends, any attack you make deals extra 1d8 damage when you hit a creature within 10 feet of you. I didn't read that when you hit a creature within 10 feet of you part. So is it even that strong on a warlock?
You were worried about more like the bow warlock.
It's just the Hexblade, then. It's not even the Eldritch Blast warlock. Jeez, this is just a weird spell. I guess that's why that's there, is to prevent Eldritch Blast warlocks from really abusing it. Still be really powerful on a Hexblade warlock, though. Jesus, like they needed to do an extra 2d8 damage on hit.
Yeah, and well, I mean, a warlock casting this, they're going to cast it automatically at 5th level, so it's an extra 3d8. Assuming it's a high or level thing, so your Eldritch Blasts are 1d10 plus 3d8.
Well, no, but you can't use the Eldritch Blast. Can't use an Eldritch Blast.
You can just walk up to them and...
You're right. You can't walk up to them and Eldritch Blast them if you want.
And that's still a lot of damage, man. Like, that's worth getting in melee for. I don't think it's like that, even that crazy a trade-off.
But on the Hexblade, it gets whacked, though.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here that I feel like, again, needs play testing. This is a complicated spell.
And I think that's a thing we want to point out, right? Is, this was the whole 10 feet of range was like hard to get. This little nuance, it can only affect creatures within 10 feet of you, and the different damage types for good or evil and not are getting hit. There's just so much stuffed onto here that it's almost like we're almost hitting that design elegance point that we like to talk about, where is there a neater, cleaner way of doing this? Maybe it does a little less, but it's a little more cohesive. And I guess chat saying it's better on Eldritch Blast for more attacks. I'm not super unsure.
There's a lot going on. People say Hexblade is broken. Just admit it. Yeah, I'm not afraid to admit that. Hexblade is objectively. Do you think Hexblade is the most broken thing in the game?
I think it is, but here's the thing. When I talk about the Hexblade Warlock being broken, I'm not talking about the Hexblade Warlock using a weapon. I'm talking about them hexing someone, then Eldritch Blasting them. Because they get the extra hex damage on their Eldritch Blasts, too.
Yeah, problematic.
Anyway. So I'm still talking about Eldritch Blast. And far from of course, Hexblade with Eldritch Blast is even more terrifying. Yeah, I could do the math for this to figure out what the average DPS is, but the answer is it's a lot, and probably a lot more than comparable stuff for a third level spell.
Hexblade needs an errata.
Maybe it needed to not be printed, but that's a whole nother topic. This spell, I think, is just too much.
It just dawned on me, because I've always just kind of been like, Hexblade's broken. But everything's so absolute that in D&D that I just, but that'll never happen. But they should be errata Hexblade.
Yeah, they should. Well, what really stinks about the Hexblade, and I actually feel bad, because I know a lot of people who play it because it's cool.
It is,
and it really is cool. And one of the features that they love, that players I see love, they latch onto with the Hexblade, and there's a tangent, guys, I'm sorry, is the 6th level feature where you get to create a specter that you can control when you kill a humanoid. And then they never get to use a feature because they never run into humanoids, and it's so infuriating for them. And that, I feel so bad seeing that, because it's like, man, the design of that, the very constrained design space of that specific feature being so limited, which they did to intentionally put more power elsewhere in the class, that just sucks. It's a lose-lose. But either way, I think we can agree that the higher level casting in this is what makes this whack.
Absolutely.
If you just strip the higher level casting out, it'd be fine, but it's still even then a little complicated. All right, Pete, what's our next one?
All of the summons.
Oh my goodness, guys, we are now on summoning spree. Have fun.
So this is Summon Aberrant Spirit, and that's the first one we're going to look at. Actually, I'm going to skip ahead to Summon Bestial Spirit, and then we can come back, because I'd rather start with the one that's the most low-key, because it'll be the easiest to look at this concept art, because all of these spells that we're going to talk about now are essentially the same spell, but with different creature types. So let's start out with the Beast, because I think that's the easiest one to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it's definitely the simplest.
So, Summon Bestial Spirit. It's an action. The concentration on it is up to an hour. It has a range of 90 feet. And you need to have a 200 gold piece component, but it's not consumed. You call forth the spirit of a beast. The spirit manifests physically in an unoccupied space that you can see within range. The range is 90 feet. This corporeal form uses the bestial spirit stat block below. And that's the thing that's going to define these, is rather than the old idea of summoning stuff from the monster manual, all of these summon spells come with a special stat block, but then have extra caveats on them as this. When you cast the spell, choose an environment, air, land, or water. The creature physically resembles an animal of your choice that is native to the chosen environment, which also determines one of the movement modes in the creature's stat block. The creature disappears when it drops to 0 hit points or when the spell ends. Creature is friendly to you and your companions for the spell's duration. In combat, the creature shares your initiative, but it takes the turn immediately after yours. It obeys verbal commands. If you don't issue any, it defends itself, otherwise takes no action. All of that is the same as the way they've been controlling summons up till now. That's kind of, I think, if it wasn't broke, don't fix it. That wasn't the issue with summons.
Actually, that's not true. That's not true.
Oh, where's the
summon? One of the major improvements here over previous summons is previously summons rolled their own initiatives and joined into the initiative count. No, that is a house rule that I just always ran it that way, Pete. I always ran it wrong because it was better wrong. And now they've made that wrong right. They've made it the rules.
Interesting.
But yeah, rules is written
I'm just used to that. There's a lot, I'm sure. I feel like everyone has stuff like that where you just kind of think, the way you play is the rules.
Yeah. But it going after yours in initiative is a new mechanic, or not mechanic, implementation that came in with the Artificer, actually, the Battlesmith Artificer and the Dog Companion, or their, I guess not necessarily a dog, but their robot friend, whatever you want to call it. I like that a lot. The fact that it just goes after you. Very good implementation there. But yeah, and when, of course, at higher levels, the beast or the bestial spirit has higher level stuff in its stat blocks. That's stuff to look at. Want to talk about the actual stat block, Pete? You want me to take this, or do you want to jump in?
Sure, I'll start us off here. Our armor class. So, all of the things in the beast stat block are going to be scaling with the level of your spell. So you can upcast the spell, and it changes things in the stat block. So the armor class is equal to 11 plus the level of the spell. So when you cast it at second level,
9th level,
the base level. Oh yeah. When you cast it at second level, which is the base level here, you're summoning it has a 13 armor class. The hit points are equal to the beast's Constitution modifier plus your spell casting ability modifier plus 10 times the spell's level. So it's a little bit of math that you're going to have to do here. But what it rounds out to for this is what? Assume a spellcasting ability modifier of 3 plus 3, 6, plus 10 times the spell's level. So 26 hit points at second level, assuming like average stats for the caster. Speed. The speed depends on what you choose. Yeah, you can, if you do a land, you can get a 30-foot climb speed. If you do air, you have a flying speed of 60 feet. Or if you do water, you have a swim speed of 30 feet.
One of the things I love is no matter what, you have a regular land speed of 30 feet. So even if you pick water and like, yeah, my spirit's a shark, your spirit can run on land because he's a shark spirit.
I never considered this.
It's kind of goofy, but it's, it's there.
That's funny. Amphibious. So if you choose water form, it can breathe naturally. If you choose air, they get flyby, which is a pretty big deal, which means they don't provoke opportunity attacks after attacking.
And then land and water both get pack tactics. So they have advantage on attacks when they have an ally nearby, which is cool.
And then the last thing that scales here is the number of attacks they get. They have multi-attack. The beast makes number of attack equal to half this spell's level rounded down. So if you cast it at second level, they just attack once. If you cast it at fourth level, they'd be attacking twice, so on and so forth. You can get a 4-attack beast if you made an 8th level bestial spirit. And then
the attacks to damage also. I'm sorry, the attacks to hit and damage both also scale with the spell's level.
Yep.
They're pretty good. I mean, these are really a solid option. Kind of like a spiritual weapon that can be killed.
Yeah, that's a fair way of looking at it. And a little bit more powerful because of that, because it can be killed.
Yeah. Which is funny, being able to kill it actually makes it stronger because it means it can soak up attacks that would otherwise hit your character, which is funny to me. This is a really good spell.
It also requires concentration too.
Oh, that's true. I still think it's a very good spell.
Yeah, no two ways about it. So before we talk about power level, just what do you think of this? Because this, and I'm interested in what everyone thinks of this. Please also tell us your thoughts on this. I haven't made up my mind how I feel about it yet. I'm actually lean in the direction of I'm not crazy about having stat blocks on my spells. It's a little complicated for my taste. I was hoping when I was reading that there's a bunch of summoning spells that it would be something that was a little bit more simple. I was hoping they'd have something that was about the text of the old summoning spells, but worked better.
But here's the problem with the old summoning spells, and this is one of the things that this really alleviates, is the old summoning spells assumed, your DM has to figure out the stats for your creatures. The DM also had to choose what creatures you got. It gave you some choices in terms of challenge ratings, but it just kind of assumed the DM knew every challenge rating 1/2 beast, right, in the game.
Yeah.
Right, or 1/4 Fae. And even I, who plays an outrageous amount of Dungeons and Dragons, have no idea. Like, I mean, I think the Pixie's probably 1/4, Sprite's probably 1/4. Are there any others? I don't know. Having this, I think, is a lot simpler in that regard. And I think it gives a little more transparency to the player. I don't know about you, Pete, but like, one of the most awful things I've ever seen, and I've seen this a couple of times, is the Dungeon Master, the mean DM. And I know that's a personal issue for the DM, but they're like, well, you cast summon beasts, so you get 8 reef sharks. We're in the forest. Oh, flopping around on the ground, you have 8 reef sharks.
I've never seen this.
It's a dick move.
It's a funny prank, I think, one time.
Yeah.
And then never do that again if you're a DM.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the kind of deal where it's like, this gives all... I like this because the player knows exactly what they're going to get, right? They know what's coming. They have control over their own destiny, for lack of a better term.
That is definitely the thing. That's the biggest issue with the other spells. And then if you gave players control over their own destiny on those other spells, though, the problem is then they're summoning 8 pixies and casting 8 polymorphs, and there's lots of like really kind of degenerate things that come with that as well.
It limits the design space for those kinds of creatures in the future.
Also, yeah, that too.
You have to worry about what challenge rating 1/4 Fae you create now, because players can just have them.
And that's much better. This alleviates that problem. Matty Morgs has a comment here that I agree with, which is, as a DM, you still need to sit down with your player and discuss having them know their spell to make time at the table more efficient, and not just, let's see, what do I add to it again? This is the kind of thing, like, if I was running a game with new players, I would never tell them that this existed, and I was confident that they knew how to play their own characters, and then were ready to, like, have this really massive and complicated stat block, because, like, I had to read this twice to like really make sure that I understood everything in it.
Well, and there are a couple of things where, like, for example, these hit point calculations. Constitution modifier plus the spells level. I mean, the reason the Constitution modifier is in there, it's always a 13. I mean, it says always, I'm sorry, the modifier is always a +3, right? A 16. That never changes. Why even bother to say that here? Why not just say 3+, right? It's a little bit of, for the sake of trying to be transparent on where the number is coming from, you're adding a little extra complexity here. It's 3 hit points. Just get rid of it even, right?
Yeah. And
why not just be 10 times the spell's level plus your spell modifier? Right? I just, there are a couple of things here that they could make it simpler even, you know? Also, why climb speed for land? That, like, doesn't, I mean, I get it, but I also don't think they needed that. You know what I mean?
And why does my hawk have 18 strength?
Yeah, why is my hawk so powerful? There are some weird discontinuities here.
Like things like, well, I guess it's always a small beast.
Birds are strong. I mean, if you saw Pete Jeremy's D&D time last week, you would know that birds can be very strong.
Birds be strong.
Eagles
well, that's it. And we have a lot of these. And personally, I don't want to go over all these in too much detail because there are a lot of them they're saying, but I'd like to just maybe call out the creature type and then like the cool differences in them. Are you down to kind of take that direction, Jeremy?
Yeah, and I will say the land, air, or water is probably the simplest take on these. All of the other stat blocks are a little different. And I don't know about you, Pete, but I would say for the most part, they're all pretty decently balanced for what they are.
Yeah.
So here we have the aberrant spirit, right, where you can pick
this is actually my favorite one.
A slotty, a star spawn, or a beholderkin, which if you're not familiar with those, congratulations, you've never had to fight those horrible monsters.
Good for you.
But these,
a charmed life.
Yeah, but these are the kind of classic D&D aberrations, right? Creatures from other worlds, like Stranger Things, that's aberrations right there. I guess technically they're demons, but not the point.
They literally named them after aberrations, like mind flayers and stuff.
Yeah. And so, these have the classic things you expect. They are immune to psychic damage. The Slotty can regenerate. The Starspawn has this whispering, terrifying aura that does some, it makes
speed.
people's ears bleed and brain,
hover speed and eye raise for your beholder.
Yep. It's just some cool stuff that it just works.
But everything else gets the same treatment. The armor class is going to work the same. The hit points are going to work the same. The plus to hit and damage are going to work the same.
Yep. Celestial Spirit for Conjure Celestial works in a very kind of similar, or it's not Conjure Celestial, I'm sorry, it's Summon Celestial Spirit. Works the same way if you go down to that. It's a large Celestial. You can pick either Avenger or Defender, and the Avenger has a powerful, like, damaging attack, and the Defender can give temporary hit points to people and protect them, which that's actually really, really powerful.
Yeah, actually, that is very good. Do you want to talk about that one more?
No, I mean, I think we can just go over these guys with a really light tone because they all work the same way. The spells all work the same way, range of 90 feet. They all have a material component. And, for the Celestial Spirit, a golden reliquary worth 500 gold. And they all have some gold cost component. But
the Earth Elementals are problematic. So we have the Elemental Spirit, and you can pick air, earth, fire, or water. And then the amorphous form for everything but the Earth Elemental. They gave the Earth Elemental a 40-foot burrow speed, but they did not give the Earth Elemental the Earth Glide feature so that it moves through Earth without tunneling. I
looked at burrow in the monster manual. Burrow does not let you burrow through rock or stone. Just not even snow, ice, or loose earth. That's it.
Loose. What is defined as loose earth?
I don't know. I looked it up. It's actually fairly limited. It's way more limited than I had thought. Let me pull it up real quick. You take the wheel, Pete.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's most of what that was my issue with it. Was my interpretation of how burrow speed works. So I thought this was busted because you could just tunnel anywhere, but I guess not. They get a resistance based on what they are. Piercing and slashing for earth, acid for water, thunder, lightning for and then the damage type on their slam attack is determined based on the elemental as well.
Yeah, burrowing speed can use its speed to move through sand, earth, mud, or ice. A monster can't burrow through solid rock unless it has a special trait that allows it to.
Interesting.
Still very strong, like if you're just walking around on land, but
less
I think
cool than I always imagined it.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely is less cool.
Don't worry, Blood Deuce, if you're watching.
Yeah.
You're good.
See, this is one I didn't like, and I think Blood mentioned that in the chat, because I actually think Conjure Elemental, the spell that currently exists for this, does this pretty well. Actually, I don't think we need this for that. That's one of the few elemental or conjure spells that I think works as it is. Matty Morris is asking, does burrow leave a tunnel? That's
why I wanted to have Earth Glide.
It does not say it leaves a tunnel. And if the rules do not say it leaves a tunnel, then unless you as a dungeon master decide it leaves a tunnel, it does not leave a tunnel.
I guess.
That is a choice as a dungeon master you can make. For me as a DM, every time I have an enemy grab one of the player characters and burrow down, it's going to leave a tunnel, just because that'd be rude as all hell. Just drag them under the ground and then they're dead. But
it seems like the kind of thing that everyone will interpret it that it does. Even if you can have it be that way, people will assume it leaves a tunnel.
Because that's just so cool.
Well, it's cool, but it's pretty good. Like having that aspect, especially if depending on how people interpret Pact, like Carl was saying, just dirt is loose earth, like soil and stuff. So I don't know. I think that's problematic and needs a little more clarification. Would be the thing I would like. But
and even beyond that, right? Like what this doesn't do, this doesn't fulfill the fantasy for me of the elementals. You know, I think the other ones actually do a really good job
The conjure
of
elemental
fulfilling
spell.
these fantasies. Yeah, but like for example, the fire elemental here. All right, it's immune to fire, and it can squeeze through stuff. That's it. When you look at the actual fire elemental, right, you can douse it with water to do damage to it. You can, if a creature starts its turn near the fire elemental, the creature starts to burn
Yeah, it can
and takes
engulf people
damage.
in its own body.
Yeah, like those are the kind of things that for me, I would like to see on this. So I don't know. This is the only one of these conjure something, conjure whatever spirits that I don't dig.
The elemental one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I mean, I'm on the fence on a lot of them, but the fiendish spirit. Let's talk that. You want to take this one, Jeremy?
Or do we want? We're going to skip the face spirit.
Oh, did I skip the face spirit? Oh,
Yeah.
My mistake. I thought that was the next one. The face spirit. You want to take this one, Jeremy?
Sure. Nice and straightforward. They can teleport like a lot of fey creatures with their face step, and then depending on whether you're a deceitful face spirit, a joyful face spirit, or a furious face spirit, your face step gets a different feature. So darkening step is deceitful. It creates magical darkness where the fey lands. Just cool. Ecstatic step, joyful only. The creatures around it have to roll a wisdom saving throw or be charmed by the face spirit after it face steps, which is a little weird, but like it's fine. Impassioned step for the furious, and the face step will give the face spirit advantage on its next attack. Just fun little spirit stabby. Nah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm not
nice
in love with it. Like this one, honestly, also it doesn't really. As someone who loves the Fae, it didn't really excite me all that much. Like, it's just kind of you get a Fae guy that I would want my Fae thing to have some kind of magical ability it can do, and it doesn't. Other than this, like I guess it creates darkness or.
Well, and that's the kind of deal. And I think Blood News mentioned it really well in the chat, right? The elementals is kind of a pale imitation of what elementals are in 5th edition D&D. And I think that's kind of how these things work here too, right? These do not have the Fey whimsy as much.
Yeah, for sure. Like it worked for me on Beholderkin and stuff like that. Like that checked, but it doesn't hit me on the Fey. It didn't hit me on the elementals. What do you think of the Fiend one now?
Fiendish Spirit. So yeah, Fiendish Spirit's kind of the exact kind of vibe. And this is another weird one because Fiendish Spirit's a 6th level conjuration. They just created the spell Infernal Calling, a 6th level spell to summon fiends in Xanath's Guide to Everything. Weird to me that this is here, but whatever. And I guess the difference is devils.
Proof of concept, if anything, I imagine.
Yeah, and the 3 types here are demons, devils, and Yugoloths, which a lot of people don't even know the Yugoloths.
But it makes sense that that's the 3.
Oh, of course. But most people don't know what they are. They're a neutral evil fiend. I guess actually, I think they are still lawful.
They're Gehenna, yeah.
Yeah, Gehenna, the Grey Wastes. But anyway,
I think you're right. I think they're neutral.
Yeah. I'm not positive.
Yeah, go on.
So magic resistance, they have advantage on saving against magic effects. That's just really good. Demons get death throws, which they blow up when they die. This is actually a pretty. I get it, but like it's not strong.
Well, it's a question of like, do they blow up when they die? Like, do they blow up when you break concentration?
Yeah. Yeah, or the spell ends.
Oh, the spell ends.
So
I think that one's pretty good. Like, kind of a big. Yeah. I guess it's a 6th level spell, though. It's only. Yeah, I guess. Never mind. I take it back. Well, it's a 6th level spell.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they stay for a while and then blow up, it could be good. And then they just get some bite claws, and the devils can hurl flame. This is okay. I don't know. Again, it kind of feels like
less so for me on this one. Like this one's like kind of fine because I feel like a lot of these enemies, they have a lot of style, but I can picture more than I can picture just a generic face spirit. I can definitely picture a generic, just like this is just a regular ass devil, It's just a devil.
That's kind of the problem I have, right? Is if you really want to get into lore of these guys, which you could, right? There are just generic weird demons, right? That exists. That's like a thing. But devils really aren't. Devils are a regimented hierarchy. And so what is generic devil? Is it like, because of the lore behind them, and Yugolos also kind of fit under that, of there's a very specific set of, like, there's specific lore surrounding these guys, that they are specific creatures, and making them kind of ambiguous to me is kind of counter to their kind of core premise of them in the game.
But I've always kind of imagined that there are foot soldiers, other than
rank and
bearded
file
devils,
soldiers,
that are just kind of like, this is just kind of a thing with like horns, and this is basically a tiefling.
Yeah,
but
a more evil
feral-looking
tiefling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess maybe that's fine. I don't know. I don't think I have any issue with this. Like, there's nothing in here that's unbalanced or anything.
I completely get it, what you're saying, because I felt the same thing about the Elemental and the Fey one. It didn't hit me as hard on that one, like it didn't hit me hard on the Aberrant, but I'm with you, you know?
Yeah, well, and I'm not saying this is a bad design necessarily. I actually think this is probably even better designed than Infernal Culling. I really like the concept they're going for here with these summoning spells. It's just a little weird for these specific flavors.
But at the same time, also, like, I wouldn't want these to be any more complicated than they already are, because they're already really complicated. So it'd be tough to, like, add more heart to them without making them even more unwieldy.
Yeah, let's talk about these shadow spirits. That's a weird one.
The shadow spirits. These are Shadowfell spirits that are manifest. The options are Fury or Frenzy, or Despair. I'm sorry, there's a third one there. And the Fury one has advantage on attack rolls against frightened creatures. The Fear one, it can take the hide action as a bonus action while in dim light or darkness. And then the Despair one has this thing called Weight of Ages, which is any beast or humanoid other than you that starts its turn within 5 feet of it has its speed reduced by 20 feet until the start of that creature's next turn. Those are all pretty good, and then they all get access to these. I like that they all get this.
Dreadful
Chilling
Scream.
Wind and Dreadful Scream. Dreadful Scream is they scream and then they frighten. It kind of seems to me like Bloodthirsty, the Fury one, is the best one.
Yeah, it's sort of hard to tell. I'm not sure how I necessarily feel about that.
Hide action as a bonus action doesn't seem like the kind of thing you'd want to do with your summon ever.
I don't know, man.
You really trying to protect that summon? I feel like
it's to get advantage in your next attack, bro. It's like the Shadow Demon.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The Dim Light of Darkness, it just pops in and out, slashing the absolute crap out of you.
The hit. I guess that matters.
Get some attacks of opportunity, get some all sorts of stuff. I mean, this is just like a pretty good feature in general. I mean, what level spell is this guy?
I was thinking
Third level?
more of just the literal idea of hiding, I guess, than the more roguish use of it.
I mean, how much damage?
I hate stealth, so.
I mean, let's look at this guy though. This is a third level spell, and these guys are going to do 2d8 plus what 6 plus 7 on average damage. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's like more than half a fireball per attack. So if these guys can get an attack off twice, pretty good. Blood was saying, I wish these stat blocks were more modular. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that. I'd like the attacks to be a lot less modular. Like people just saying, I like that these are all the same here for the attack and then the Dreadful Scream. I also like how their core like abilities here are unique between them. And I think if they all went in that direction, that could be a better take. And then the Undead Spirit, this is the only one I think is actually busted, Pete. I don't know how you felt about it.
I think I might have honestly just kind of I kind of was getting sick of reading about these spirits by the time I got to this one. It kind of felt like I got it, so I didn't pay enough attention. So why don't you take it then? And I'll
you get to be ghostly, putrid, or skeletal. And of course, a ghostly spirit can shift through creatures and terrain, which I think there's a huge problem with that, but whatever. I don't like the idea of you being able to summon something that can just go through walls. That feels like a huge issue to me. But from a design perspective, Putrid has just saving throws out the behind because you got to roll a saving throw whenever you start your turn next to it. That could just be a lot of saves that's going to be annoying to keep track of.
Yeah, it's worth noting. Can I just make a comment now? Yeah. All of these things speak common.
Yeah,
and can talk to you, except for the beasts, I think.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big deal. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, well, and then you come to these multi-attacks, right? And what is this spell? Summon undead, the third level necromancy. Then the attacks, right? Like, deathly touch. It has a fear effect attached to it on it saves every time you hit with it. I'm not too concerned with that, but like it's an extra save to add to things. The skeletal one's actually fine. It just does some damage. I don't really have two issues there. And then Rotting Claw is if they failed on your saving throw against the poison that the Festering Aura has, they got to roll another saving throw or become paralyzed. Which is just like, that's a really powerful effect to just put on a cheap summon.
That is very good. Also, I think the skeletal one's good too, man.
But it's just damage.
But the thing that is good about it though is the range on it, because that skeleton's never going to die. It's just going to be at the back of the fight, just every turn. Like,
well, and for a third level spell, I think that's okay, right?
Well, I'm thinking fourth level hit twice, 48 plus.
Pretty good, plus a lot.
Every round.
So maybe there's some balance concerns on the undead one.
Yeah,
but
it seems really good, and the other ones are obviously good too. And incorporeal movement's really good. And I don't know, that's a powerful.
Incorporeal movement's really weird to me, man. Like,
I like it and it's fun, but I know your qualms with incorporeal movement, and I can certainly understand them.
Well, the thing about this, right, is like you don't have to use any of it obeys your verbal commands that you issue to it, no action required by you. If you don't issue any, it defends itself, but otherwise takes no action. So does that mean if you don't issue an order every turn, it doesn't do anything? Because that's what it sounds like, which means you can't really scout with it. But then that's not, like, it's a nuanced bit of the rule, but it's not going to be how you'll actually play with it, Like, if I could summon a ghost, I'd want to use the ghost to scout things, Yeah,
I'm with you. Needs a little work.
But anyway, that's just that stuff.
There's
Pete,
a
we should
lot
talk
on
about this
that.
next point.
Yeah, let's talk about those magic tattoos.
I can get caught up in the weeds sometimes.
Yeah, no problem. There's just a lot going on there, and there's a lot of nuance. Like, the design is so complicated on all of these that it's really hard to kind of evaluate them without seeing how they end up playing. Yeah. And my guess is, for the most part, if you allowed these in your games, like, they'd be fine, but there's just a lot here in terms of, like, slowing down the game, for one thing, with calculating it, but also, like, so much new stuff for the dungeon master to, like, understand how it works. And so they're cool and interesting. Final thoughts, Jeremy. Do you like this direction?
I think it's a very good direction with some caveats. I think they actually did a little bit different between each of these. Some of them, they just had differences in the core features. Some, they had differences in, like, the attacks and other abilities. I think this is an interesting direction. I think they could do something really cool with this. But I think they need to give this a little bit more thought before just releasing it into the wild. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely don't think it's ready as it stands. Sure.
Yeah, but it's a really cool new direction, and I'm excited to see what they do to it.
Yeah, I'm still not into the stat block on the end of a spell thing, but yeah. I think that it doesn't matter that I'm not into that, because that's what D&D is. Jeremy, just like you didn't like spell slot to get back class feature,
still don't.
I don't think I'll ever like this, but it seems like they're going to be pretty dead set on this. So
we'll see. I don't know.
Well,
I'm not
as a lot of stuff
sold.
Too. Like, they've been putting it on class features and stuff, creating stat blocks, and
you're right. They did it for the spell Tiny Servant too.
Yep, Tiny Servant.
So why not do it here?
I was actually fine with it on Tiny Servant, weirdly, but
anyway.
Yeah, magic tattoos. Basically, these are magic items that are tattoos. There's a little bit of flavor text here, but essentially what it says is there can be magic tattoos, and they give you buffs while you are wearing a magic tattoo. And there's a feature here called Magic Tattoo Coverage, but I'd rather actually talk about the key thing about them before we talk about that, because that's an interesting balancing aspect on these. The thing that all these tattoos have in common, there's a single piece of design they all have, and that's how you attune to the tattoos. So as we start talking about
write down a tattoo attunement.
Um, wait, what?
Do you want to go right down to just tattoo and attunement?
Yeah,
and
I want to
talk
start with tattoo attunement.
yeah, I'm right there.
Great. Tattoo attunement. To attune to this item, you hold the needle to your skin where you want the tattoo to appear, pressing the needle there throughout the attunement process. When the attunement is complete, the needle turns into the ink that becomes the tattoo, which appears on the skin. If you have multiple magic tattoos, they count as a single magical item with regard to the number of magical items you can attune to. If your attunement to the tattoo ends, the tattoo vanishes and the needle reappears in the closest unoccupied space to you.
So basically, tattoos come in the form of magic needles. Those magic needles you can attune to, and they become the tattoos. So yeah, you can have multiple tattoos for the price of one attunement. So now going back up to our top part here, there's magic tattoo coverage. And this is the balance aspect to that, because you can't just say, well, I'm just going to get like 100 tattoos and be super powerful. And the idea is the rarity of the tattoo determines how much of your body it would require. And so very rare tattoos require 2 limbs or the upper chest or the upper back, right? I'm sorry, or the chest or the upper back. A legendary tattoo would require 2 limbs and the entire torso. And so that's your limiter on how many tattoos you can have, is you have only so much space on you. You can have effectively unlimited common tattoos, 6 inches. I mean, technically there's a limit, but like how many common tattoos are you going to get, right?
Yep.
This is a really interesting design. How do you feel about it, Pete, conceptually?
I like and dislike it. To me, the thing that makes tattoos cool and that would excite me about a magical tattoo is inherently the permanence of it. And having it be a thing that I can take on and off very easily takes away some of the cool of the tattoo to me. But I can also understand why they did it this way, because they don't want people to regret getting a tattoo, and they can't just have a bunch of magic items that are very powerful but don't require attunement.
I agree. And even beyond that, here's my real, because I think this is a really kind of cute and nuanced way of trying to balance these tattoos, right? You've created creatures in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons at this point, or race options, that do not have a standard humanoid form. A centaur, for example, has 2 extra limbs. Can they get more tattoos? Right? They have a larger body area. So does it still require their whole torso? You had some weird questions there. And then the next part is, well, part of like a tattoo is what it looks like, right? That aesthetic design. And forcing something like that onto it, I feel like for a mechanical purpose, I don't know. I feel like some people might not like that. Some people might not like the idea of like, well, I want my character to have like a little tattoo, not like some huge thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, making it be the entire body for like this legendary tattoo.
Like I get the feel they're going for there, and I even like it.
Yeah, I agree.
A lot of people I could see not liking it for the reason I was saying there.
So it is definitely a strange way to limit these. Frankly, the way that they did it, it seems like they should just have the tattoos be the magic items and have them require attunement and not do this weird body thing. Even though
I could see it either way.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea, and it's cool to me. But it seems like it would be, if they wanted to make it more generally accessible, that would be the way to go. Like if they wanted everyone to just be able to do whatever they wanted with the tattoos, it's just like you put the needle in, it becomes a tattoo, you attune to it, you can take it out if you want to tune to it.
V-Bunny was asking, does my head count as a limb, D&D time? Looking at this, half a limb or the scalp. So I think that's half a limb is the answer, V-Bunny, I guess. I can't really give you a better answer. And that's some more ambiguity there. Like, all right, well, if my scalp is half a limb, can my scalp and face be 1 limb? Right?
My legs are very long.
Yeah, right. Oh, I'm a stupid, dumb. What is it? The thing from Ravnica with extra arms. I'm that dumb thing. I got extra arms. Do.
And my answer as a DM would be it's proportional to your total body mass. But
Yeah, but it's just
but,
there are
it's
some
not,
problems here.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Let's talk about what they do. I don't want to spend a ton of time on these because basically they just do things that other magic items do.
Yeah.
Like this
So,
first one is a very rare tattoo. It's called an absorbing tattoo, and you can put it on yourself, and it gives you resistance to a damage type.
well, it does more than just that, though. It also gives you the option once per day when you would be hit by that damage type, you can gain immunity to the damage type and regain a number of hit points equal to half the damage you would have taken.
Pretty cool.
Pretty big.
Yeah. And that's 2 limbs. Or the chest or upper back.
2 limbs. Yeah, or chest or upper back.
So I got necrotic resistance on my legs. Or one leg. My left leg and my right arm are necrotic resistant.
Barrier tattoo comes in a couple of different rarities, and I mean, it's basically armor. It's just instead of wearing armor, you gain this armor class, and ACs are 12 plus dex modifier, 15 plus dex modifier, maximum of 2, or 18. So basically, studded leather armor, breastplate, or plate armor.
Full plate, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get these.
But very rare isn't really seem like worth wearing plate. I guess unless you're someone that doesn't have the access to wear plate, but
I don't know. I mean, worth and value are, they're very subjective. This doesn't have a lot of the drawbacks plate has. It's not metal, which can really matter for certain spells. Stealth disadvantage.
I mean, also, you can do it on a wizard.
You do it on a wizard. So, I totally get these as being something you might need. What are some other really cool ones in here?
There's the Coil and Grasp one. This is an interesting one. The tattoo has intertwining designs. While it's on your skin, you can, as an action, cause the tattoo to exude into inky tendrils, which reach for a creature. They have to succeed on a strength saving throw where they take 3d6 force damage and are grappled by you. And they can try to escape the grapple by means of a DC 14 check. And it ends if you choose to do so, or if they're more than 15 feet away from you. But I kind of like the idea of the tattoo coiling off and the ink reaching out is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just an interesting ability you now have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Common one.
Eldritch Claw is a kind of similar idea, right? You can make unarmed strikes because the tattoo's on your skin and it forms claw or jagged shapes. And it's a +1 thing. So actually, holy crap! You hear this, monks? You can get a +1 weapon now.
Congratulations! Welcome.
And then
to the
you get
club.
a special bonus action to empower the tattoo for a minute. And you get a reach of up to 30 feet with your with inky tendrils launching out. In addition to melee dex, deal extra d6 force damage on hit, and once you use that, you can't use it again until the next dawn. So pretty cool.
Yeah, there's the Blood Fury one here, which is pretty badass. Legendary tattoo. You score crits on a 19 or 20. When you score a critical hit, the target takes an extra 46 necrotic damage, and you gain temporary hit points equal to that necrotic damage. And when a creature you see damages you, you can use your reaction to make a melee attack against them with advantage.
And yeah, I mean, there are a whole bunch more of these. We won't go through literally every single one of them right here, I don't think. But Blood in chat, Blood Deuce, was really, really asking about the spell storing tattoo, which I think is a spell. Which one is it?
The Spell Rot?
I think it's the Spell Rot one, yeah. So let's talk about that one.
Yeah, you can get a lot of cantrips.
Yeah, you can store spells in this, and to use the tattoo, you must hold the needle against your skin, where you want that to appear and speak the command word.
Was he thinking this problematic? Because these are just spell scrolls, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're consumed once you use it.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is problematic. Yeah,
Blood, let us know if you think if this was the one you were talking about. But yeah, these are consumed. I'm not sure where these become really too powerful. I mean, unless you have an unlimited supply of them, in which case, yeah, they're real good. But
what's the spell? The tattoo vanishes from your skin. Yeah, because it doesn't say that you get the needle back. It just says the tattoo vanishes. So I'm pretty sure that once you've used it, it's just
that's why it doesn't have tattoo attunement actually on this. It doesn't. You don't have to attune to these.
Yeah, I think that was maybe you didn't notice the thing.
Or maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. If I am, let us know. But overall, I mean, what do you?
Bloodies was saying non-attunement and storage on your skin. You could just walk around and have 200 first level spells with you at all times. Theoretically, that's true, but that would require for your DM to give you 200 first level tattoos. So, I guess that's that's more of a campaign issue than I think an inherent balance. That'd be the same thing. I mean, like a wizard could have 200 spell scrolls in a binder that they carry around. Like I feel like that's the same thing to me, at least. Except that you can't lose them, which is
I guess you're right.
Cool
It would be pretty busted if you could find like, my unlimited shield tattoos. But here's the deal about that. I'm sure there are games where people would try that. Like someone will try it with this, but that's not the point of these.
Yeah,
you're like, I found a loophole to win Dungeons and Dragons. Ha 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 ha. Good. Congrats. Now let's play D&D. You can go play I have 200 shields on my body by yourself. And it's not, I don't mean you specifically, Blood, but, someone could do something like that, right? Like, yeah, it's just like, I don't get that point, right? I understand optimizing a character, but like, I have found the loophole that makes me immortal. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's all campaign dependent on that one, but we'll wrap it up for the tattoos. I think that's all those.
Yeah. What do you think about them overall? Because I mean, these are pretty cool. I think these are neat. I think they're a cool addition. And honestly, even with their current implementation, which is somewhat
a little bit clunky, and the flavor misses it for me on a beat, but I like them. And I would even use them.
I agree. I like these. I think this is as good an implementation, at least as a first draft or a first public release, right, that I could possibly ask for. I'm sure these are going to get cleaned up, and if this is what they're showing me now in the Unearthed Arcana, I'm confident these are going to be really good when they finally come out and they get a couple of these little tidbits cleaned up.
Precisely. I'm with you 100%.
I also really like this addition, this little variant body modification note here, talking about how, scarification, brands, birthmarks, patterns on scales, any sort of cosmetic skin adornment or alteration could reasonably be, used as a surrogate for these. I like that those are just included there. Like, it just feels cool to me.
Yeah.
But I think, at least for me, that wraps up tattoos.
Which brings us on to our most important segment.